Hello and welcome to Team Liquid's Mythic Ansurek guide. This will be the last installment in the Nerub-ar Palace guide series. And following the most recent boss nerfs, we should be able to get through everything much more quickly and get you in here, killing the boss. Pretty minimal amount of time compared to before. The boss nerfs were very big, and then as we get the ramping damage buff, get a new one next week. It'll be at over 9%, I believe. So fight is just going to get easier and easier structurally. It is significantly easier if you are approaching this as like Farak level difficulty. It was a beast, and after the nerf, she's just like a little spider, and you can step on her pretty easily. So lock in, and we can go over everything you need to kill the boss. So first thing that is important is we have a lot of assignments with this boss, and the changes haven't really decreased the amount of assignments you need. So to talk about the weak aura packages for a second, they generally cover the same things. If I had to make one slight determination, is that the Northern Sky weak auras are a little more hand-holdy than the liquid ones, but functionally they both do the same thing and set you up for success. One thing about the Northern Sky weak auras that you may want to consider is using their external weak aura. It's called NS externals on Wago. What it does is it will automatically assign externals to the people targeted with the first and third. Obviously the second doesn't exist anymore, but the first and third royal condemnations. And since you're stacking them and those players taking a lot of damage, that can be quite nice. Up to you either way. Get into the structural changes. So the nerfs reduced the number of web blades from 4 to 3. Previously, that was the heroic to mythic, was that you gained a web blade from heroic, and now it's just 3 web blades on both difficulties in all phases. And the toxins on heroic, you always get 2. On mythic, you used to gain 1 every set, so it'd go 2, 3, 4. Now it just goes 2, 3, and then remains at 3. So you have a 2 set, a 3 set, and another 3 set instead of a 4 set. Obviously that is a big quality of life change. The 4 set was pretty difficult. And then I think some damage nerfs in P2 with the magic dispel, and in phase 3, obviously, they removed entirely the second Royal Condemnation cast from the fight, which was definitely a big prog point for most people. It was definitely the hardest moment in phase 3, in my opinion. So generally, that kind of covers, I think, most of the mythic changes to the fight. Obviously, the other thing that happens in the intermission is that whenever you are pulled by rest, you drop a puddle of webs that grows over time. So that's something we're going to want to be aware of. In phase 2 as well, we gain this portal mechanic. Portals spawn in on either side of the arena, just like you normally split up in heroic. Each side just gains a portal. On every platform, that portal will spawn when the new platform is activated. So like when you land on the first platform, that portal will spawn. And it's like a friendly NPC where it has a cast bar. If the cast bar is allowed to finish without someone going into the portal, someone going through the portal resets the cast. It will kill everyone on that side. So allowing a portal to complete its cast, which just causes a wipe. The portal has a nice little animation where it turns red 3 seconds before it's going to explode, so that's something you want to be aware of as well. The whole fight's mythic changes, I think that is about it. Yeah, so let's go back into phase 1. We'll go phase by phase and talk about the assignments that you need before you go into the fight. The first thing that you're going to need is you're going to need to assign the reactive toxin groups and the people who are going to pop those toxins by walking into the center. So on the first set, as I said before, you have only 2, so you're placing these 2 behind the boss. We'll talk more about the positioning and markers and that kind of stuff. But as you can see in this kind of table here, we have reactive toxin cast 1, cast 2, cast 3. You can see this is the recent nerf. Previously, this would have been 4. The 4th marker would have been triangle. So if you want to copy our markers, we have star, circle. Star is the furthest outside. Circle is the one that's second from the outside. And then diamond is the 3rd one, which is usually placed in range or a little bit inside the middle hexagon of the room. For the first split, we pretty much want all our melee in star and then all our ranged in circle. It's pretty even. It's just an even split. And then we're just picking 2 people to pop. Generally, when you choose the people to pop, you just want to pick your more reliable players. Obviously, you need a unique popper for each toxin. So with the Northern Sky weak aura, we can see here, the first 2 lines are just the first 2 groups. So the first line is star, the second line is circle, and then the first name in each of these lines are the people popping it. So you can see Nerio is the first name, so he's popping star, and then Pinga is the first name, so he's popping circle, and that continues down. So these next 3 lines are the second cast of toxin. We have star, orange, purple. The first 3 names are the poppers, and then the last 3 we have star, orange, purple, and then each of the 3 poppers. Pretty simple. You want to try and maintain that melee, no ranged in star ever. If you have to have ranged in circle, that's fine, but they need to be aware of that. And that kind of leads into our next topic of conversation, which is this toxin priority weak aura. Now what this does is the name, you list the names in order, and the names that are on the left of this list are prioritized for star or circle, right? So it's just a left to right priority, where the left most names are more likely to get the more melee marks, so star or circle, and then the rightmost name is more likely to get the ranged marks, so diamond, circle, right? And it's built in such a way such that unless there are 3 ranged players, no range will ever get star, and vice versa. Unless there are 3 melee players, no melee would ever get diamond. So that's kind of how that works, and you want to really cater to the people with low movement, like priests, warlock, and then the people, the range with more mobility, leaning more towards circle, and then melee, the people with the least mobility always being star, and then the melee with more mobility being circle. And so what this priority allows is for people to pre-position kind of near the marker that they are most likely to get. So if you're in the middle as a ranged player, like I have the evokers here, then they can play like kind of exactly on circle or around circle, leaning towards star. Just in the case that there are 3 ranged, they are more advantageously positioned to get to a star, and then obviously ranged that cannot get circle, right? So in this scenario, like both priests can definitely favor towards circle. The only scenario where both priests should heavily favor diamond, and then the only scenario where a priest could ever get circle is where both priests get a toxin, right? And then in that case, the name to the left would get circle, and the name to the right would get diamond. So that's kind of how that works. The more thoroughly kind of this priority is made and everyone understands like where they should best position before the toxin goes out, the more consistent you're going to be able to be with this mechanic by far. Secondary, the other big nerf in phase 1 is that the 4th root set was entirely removed. Now this 4th root set was the problem set in that it came much more quickly after the 3rd roots than any of the other roots casts. So people's cooldowns weren't able to come back up, like the evokers weren't able to farm back their deep breath and things like that. So previously what was the meta was that we would break a certain number of roots by killing them, like stacking them on the boss, DPSing them down on the 3rd root set. That is no longer necessary. For most specs are able to do something every root set, and if you have some paladins or some some monks, and then some gnomes, you can pretty much make it work out for the most part so that you get no roots. But if you don't want to bother with that, like if maybe you don't have some gnomes, maybe you're like low on paladins, and you have to break some roots out, completely fine. The the root HP was heavily nerfed, so it's no longer like much of a burden at all to just stack those roots under the boss and burst them down. Should be very manageable on almost every set, so that's just something to be aware of. Now, going into phase 2, you have to split your group just like heroic into 2 groups. Right? 1 tank on each side, 2 healers on each side, and then you want to have like a melee and a range side. And so the trick here is that you can send ranged at the beginning to the melee side and have them port early to the melee side, if that makes sense. And then kind of vice versa. You have melee start on the range side, and then you have them cross over to the actual melee side. And then so you're kind of using the portals to get people on the correct side. Now, the reason why there's a melee on the range side is because the range side actually has ranged caster adds on it. So one of the mythic changes in P2 is that the second platform has 2 caster adds, which just cast this 10-second long cast that just blows everyone up if it's allowed to cast. So you want to prio having ranged on that side for that second platform in P2. And then the other side just has an extra tank ad, and it's pretty chill. So the melee on the one without the ranged ads, and then ranged on the side with the ranged ads. And what we're doing, depending on how much damage you do, this is something you're just going to have to monitor as your progression happens with the damage buffs and all that stuff, is that during progression for most guilds, you had the healers cross over to the correct platform immediately following the shield break, right? So immediately following the shield break, you split the group up, and then you fight 2 void speakers. There is 1 portal that should occur on this platform, and what should occur is just you swap 2 of the healers. Previously, this would give them the portal debuff and force the Dispel in P2, the natural one that gets applied to the healer on the second platform, onto the people that did not have the portal debuff, but with the reduction in the portal debuff time to 30 seconds from 3 minutes. That was also one of the nerfs. This is no longer the case, so now either healer on either side could get the Dispel unless you have them go on the first platform. And obviously this is something to monitor as kind of this progression of the nerf boss unfolds. Obviously, before with the 3-minute debuff, you would do something like this, where you have unique players do pretty much every portal, and then what would occur is, so like this is the main platform portal, so priest is on the rage side, so they would just start on the melee side, go in the portal, and then end up on the correct side, and the same thing with the holy paladin. They would start on the wrong side, get TP'd to the right side. So you'd ideally only want to do 1 portal on that side, and then you want to do 2 portals on the first platform, and then 2 portals on the second platform, and then 2 portals on the third platform. And what this would do is have us do 7 portals in total, and then 2 on each platform following the first. So on the first main platform, when you're right after you break the Intermission shield, you do 1 portal, then 2 on the first platform, 2 on the second platform, 2 on the third. Now, with the amount of damage we have now, it's possible that you can cut out some of these second goes. The most likely places are going to be on the second platform and then on the third. The third one, you don't really get punished for doing for safety, because when you get knocked, that debuff doesn't do any damage, it just gets removed. So that's not really one to worry about. Now, but on the second platform, the way the cooldowns work on this boss is that almost every player's 2 minutes are coming up on the second platform. So this platform can get really, really fast as you get here with more and more people alive. In the case that it's not completely synced, what can happen is that the melee side can kill their adds much faster than the range side. And if the melee side activates the third platform and then the second player goes in the portal, the second player can get TP'd to the third platform, and there's an ad there that's ready to kind of fight them, and they can just get killed. So that's kind of like a dynamic that you want to be monitoring and thinking about whether it's more consistent and more safe to send that second player through on the second platform, or just try and push, and then that portal cast gets canceled by pushing and activating the next platform kind of naturally. And I think the most important thing there is just like whatever you're going to do, just make sure that it's consistent, that you're going to do the same thing every time and proceed in that way. So with the weak aura, we just have split end to left and right, the portal sides, and then we have a lot of things that we need to kick in phase 2. So obviously you have the first 2 caster adds that are split on each side, and the thing that I'm going to recommend for this is actually using like this Mythic Plus focus macro. I'm a pretty big fan of it. Of course, you can have auto marking, that can be okay, but personally I just prefer the consistency of the focus macro. So what it does is you focus it, and then this number here correlates to the marker that it's going to get. So if you just search raid target markers, put in the appropriate number, then that guy will focus the mob first and apply the correct marker, and then the kick weak aura will work perfectly. If you want to do the auto marking, just make sure what gets auto marked with what mark, and how consistent that is, and then set up your kick note accordingly. As you can see here, I have like the side that the ad is on, the marker that's going to get, the list of players that are going to kick it in the order, and then I have the marker for that ad assigned as well. So that's kind of it. So we have the first voice speakers after you break the shield on the main platform. On the second platform in P2, we have the ranged acolytes, which is left, right, and then the reason we're marking those is just for the kick weak aura. As a small tangent, I have assigned people to mandate both of those ads, as the caster ads are the ones that don't have shared HP, and so those are usually the ones that are holding you back from pushing the second platform. And then on the third platform in P2, we have another set of void speakers just like the first, and we are marking them, have different people marking them with different marks, and then these lists are different. And what you need to make sure is that the people who are assigned to kick them are actually on the correct side, like post the portals that have happened up to this point. So just something to be aware of. And then in phase 3, it's actually pretty chill. The only assignments we have are the essence pick-uppers, the people who are picking up essences. And so what that is, it's pretty simple. You just have the first 3 acolytes, so 3 spawn, and then the second acolyte cast, 4 spawn, and then you have 3 from the old one, so a total of 7. And then on the third acolytes, you're just not playing them, but instead of 5, there now are only 4 after the nerf. So what that amounts to is just a little bit of extra raid damage. And then pretty much every kill from now on is going to be aiming to beat the ring cast that follows that acolyte spawn. Now, what that means is that if you don't kill the acolytes in the third set at the end of the fight, when the ring casts, it will explode the raid if any acolytes remain alive. So you kind of have a choice to make where you can bring the boss around, kill the acolytes, and gain a little bit more time. If you really want to play to the end of the fight, what you're going to need to do is pick up all the essences. So it's actually 11 essences that you're going to need to pick up, and then take those all through the portal, or just pick them up while the ring passes through you. And then you could really see the end of the fight there if you feel like your damage is really bad. But for most people, definitely recommend trying to beat that, and obviously with the ramping damage buff you should definitely be able to. Yeah, so we're only planning to play 2 sets of essences, so we have 3 at the beginning. Very simple, a left, center, a right assignments. Just quickly hopping over, looking here, right? So we have star, blue, and moon. So blue is left, star is center, and then moon is right. These all spawn directly in front of the ads when they are killed, and you should have a weak aura that's telling you the exact moment when you should pick up the essence. So it'll count down, and then at 0, pick up your essence. And then you also have a weak aura telling you when to go through the portal when you're carrying the essence, which you should be going through the portal last. The way the essences work is they destabilize the portal. If you go slightly early, or even like as everyone else is going through the portal, people who are like minorly slow can be killed by the portal like collapsing early. So it's very important that you follow your weak aura that's telling you when to go through if you're carrying an essence. And if you're confused at all, just make sure you're going in like very late. Obviously not risking it with the ring, but making sure that you're not going before anyone who doesn't have an essence, ideally. So that's pretty much everything with the essences. Small change from progression since they removed the royal combinations that follow this second set of essences. I think what you want to do is assign as many blinks to this as possible, because what these assignments were created for was to make use of Renewing Blaze with the damage that you're taking from actually carrying the essence. And then with these essence targets, we're immune from being targeted by the royal condemnation, which followed. Then this was the second one. This was like the hard one. Where you have to gate, it's hard to get in position, and then we don't have those externals to keep the targeted players very safe. So we're trying to bait those condemnations on people with immunities, right? So that whole convention, now that the royal condemnation cast there is removed, isn't really necessary. So you can make use of mages, rogues, windwalkers, warlock, DH, warrior, anyone who can jump over the ring. Really nice to use here now that that dynamic is kind of removed. A choice as well, if your tanks are feeling very, very tanky and they think they can handle it, they can re-pick up on the second essence and tank through the Vuln, and you just want to make sure that they're very confident that they can handle that incoming damage. I tanked it for the first time this week, wasn't confident that I could do that, so I did not double pick up an essence, and it was completely fine. So that's just something that you want to be aware of. The other thing that you want to have kind of set in stone for P3 is the ordering of CC for the infests gloom hatchlings. So very important that you have them slowed when they come out. If they're not slowed, then they can kind of just run through the ring and hit the boss, because the game is weird. So just make sure you have some kind of slow. D&D with Grip of the Dead, perfect for this. And then you have that ring just a little bit off center from the boss, and then an Evoker Spit, a Cap Totem or other long stun, Windwalker leg sweep, or Brewmaster leg sweep, DH stun. And then you can follow that up with the Ursals just for safety, binding shot, and then really like last second stuns, make sure they don't touch the boss, DH stun, shockwave, any kind of like a wing buffet, anything to just keep them away from the boss at that point. But with the more and more damage and the less timing at 640, the gloom hatchlings pretty much explode, especially if you have like one Fury Warrior in the raid of Frost Death Knight, Shadow Priest, stuff like that really makes them explode. Okay, so with that being said, that's most of the hard assignments in the encounter in terms of kind of like we're putting this in the Discord channel before we fight the boss. Now, kind of hopping into the VOD here, we can talk through it. So we have a choice here just immediately. You can dynamically place markers. There are kind of 3 choices. So you can have someone dynamically place markers. So what I was doing was I was dynamically placing the markers, right? The other thing that you can do is kind of like semi-dynamically place them. So like I'm pre-placing star orange, and then what you can do is you can pre-place purple here, right here, and then just line up star and orange after the first, so then you kind of like only have to place 2 markers on the second set, and then on the third set you have to place like star orange and purple again, right? And then in P3 you can either place them all at the beginning of phase 3, or what you can do is you can look up from the center of the room and place the markers kind of on that center ring from downstairs, or you can use an ability like Farsight or Hunter's Eagle Eye or whatever it's called to go up there and then place the markers for P3 before you get there. And then so the other choice that you can make is you can use these markers for reactive toxin in phase 1, or you can forgo them to like have fully pre-placed markers in phase 3. And I think that's kind of a bit silly because you do have that so much AFK time at the start of P3 to fix those markers. So I think like the half and half approach is probably best. There's one place where you really need star marker on the third set of reactive toxins. And I think just having those anchors for people is really good. Now, kind of on the other hand, having people like really obsessed with like their assignment when it comes to reactive toxin is like unilaterally bad. It's much better if you encourage people to speak to each other, and if something like the thing about the weak aura priority is that it doesn't know where you are in the room, right? It doesn't know the exact context of anything. It's just doing its best based on this priority to make the assignment easiest for you, right? And that's not always going to be the case, especially in the case of like 3 ranged players on the second or third set, right? So really it's important that you communicate, the 3 people that receive toxin, communicate and make sure that they figure it out in the time that they have before the toxins go down, and try and get them like in the correct alignment. Maybe it's not exactly on the marker, and that's fine, except for the star position on the third toxin. But that's kind of how you can handle markers on this fight. Alright, so you do this first liquefy into the first tombs cast. Something that is worth pointing out is like, so you see the mages positioned here, right? So they're they're altering and then blinking to put their puddles into the group while being completely out of the group for the actual spread, right? So this is very advantageous for 2 reasons. One is after their altar, they can move back very easily and be in a very good position for webblade baits. And they're also keeping themselves out of this stack, right? So really minimizing here the amount of webs placed back here. And that's just something generally you want to do, is keep as many webs as possible outside of this middle hexagon in the center of the room. And when it comes to assignments, again, you kind of have 2 choices with how you approach it. So maybe you could do one night of progress and see where people find themselves comfortable, then go in, look where people chose to go, and then kind of cement those assignments there, right? And that's what we did. We did one night of progress, and then did these hard assignments, so people kind of have their spots where they go every time, right? So on each of the 3 root sets, and then the 4th set before was kind of irrelevant because you just tucked against the stuff. Now obviously that set doesn't exist anymore, so nothing to worry about. Let's continue. So immediately following those roots we have web blades, and then something you want to do here is try and have the melee together. And where I'm here now is actually quite bad. What would have been better is if I was with the melee here, right? So if I was with the melee here, then we can all move together right here, and it's super easy, right? So, and then generally just, we don't want any range in front of melee, because this is where melee want to go, right? Baiting web blades there is consistently bad, right? So that's just a general rule. When it comes to the range spread, the point of spreading is to just create a wider area where web blades can go. So the more spread out the web blades are, obviously the more space spots you will have, and the easier the mechanic will be to deal with. So obviously with the reduction from 4 to 3, web blades is a much easier mechanic, but still you want to have this idea as range that you're expanding out into a spread when web blades are getting targeted, and then when reactive toxins are going out, you're coming in and kind of pre-positioning for what assignment you're most likely to get, right? In this scenario, we have 2 ranged players. One is a mage and then one is a shaman, right? So we have someone who's very slow and then someone who's very fast, right? So definitely what should happen here, right, is the mage just says, I'm going star, right? They blink to star, and then the shaman makes his slow way to orange, and then that's like the best way to deal with that mechanic, right? And that's where the communication really comes in handy. And then you just go both get in your soak. And the Northern Sky Weak Aura counts down until when it should be popped, and then you dodge waves. On each pop reactive toxin set, you generally want to have areas where the poppers go with their green circle. Something to note with the green circle is that it does absolutely 0 damage unless you have the reactive toxin debuff from popping, which is a vuln to that type of damage. So if you have popped a toxin before, avoid the green circles like the plague, and if not, then feel free to get hit by it, especially if you're dodging other mechanics that will kill you like waves or web blades. So you can see I manually placed the markers here, and what I've done here is I've moved the boss a bit away. And what I like about this is that it gives melee a nice place to stack on the back left of the boss here, right? So we have melee here, and then I can turn the boss this way for parries, right? And then we have this awesome spread of ranged, where people who are more like ranged, who are more likely to get star or orange, can pre-position there because the melee are out here, and melee won't lose any uptime from the boss moving out and back in, right? So I think this dynamic is actually really powerful for web blades on the set, because the melee have the easiest time. They're all stacked. They can just move back this way towards the marker during web blades, and then for ranged, just so spread out here. It just makes this set very easy, especially in the case of 3 ranged players, which I think is most guilds, like, least consistent part of phase 1 is when you get 3 ranged with these toxin. I think it becomes pretty difficult, right? And you can see it's very easy. And then with this pre-position, the toxins just make sense so much easily. What you can do, small tank tip, is you can turn the boss here, waiting for her to cast Venom Nova. Once she casts Venom Nova, you can get into the soak, and then she's kind of locked into this position, so preventing parries by doing that. And then immediately following this, you're dragging the boss into this corner. The 3 players who pop, this is like 1, 2, 3, and then the waves are coming out. Back here we're dodging, and then we get a web blades cast. So this is like one of the most difficult overlaps of Feat 3. You can see we've popped the APT totem here, very powerful use for that here. This is definitely, I think, the scariest part of phase 1 in terms of like natural deaths to like avoidable quote-unquote mechanics, right? So waves, web blades, liquefy puddles, very easy to die here. You can see we've dragged the boss into this corner here. Generally, the melee convention here is you stack on the back of the boss here, right? And then you're all baiting web blades together and you're moving this way. So very important that any ranged like here should go back this way, because we don't want anyone baiting where the melee want to go. What's very natural, but also like a big mistake here, is that melee dodge to the left facing the boss when they should all go this way, right? So this is bad, this is right. The reason why this is bad is because you have straggler waves coming still this way, and you have web blades that are going to go down here, right? And so what can happen is you're in a safe spot for a web blade against this wall, and then a wave comes into your safe spot, kills you. Nothing you can really do. So you should be aware of that. Definitely the melee stacking together behind the boss going this way is definitely the safest way to play this. And then just make sure your ranged know that they either need to come into melee or go back into ranged, right? You can see that that wave was dangerous. And then you're just pulling the boss up here for the 3rd root set. Maybe you need to break some, maybe you don't. They're stacking. Any roots that need to be break are stacking in the front of the boss here. And the reason for that is so we can move the boss a bit on top of them, just for full coverage. And then you can see ranged players, there's a lot of space here where they can put these roots. And then we're playing 1 web blades, which is very easy. And then you can kind of choose how you want to play this. You can either, there's like 2 kind of valid ways to think about it, I think. So this is the 3rd set, and something to note here is that the best way to deal with Star is to have a Monk Transcend to pop Star on the 3rd reactive toxin set. Now that means that they either need to pre-place their port, and then the person marking needs to put the mark on the port, or they need to put the mark and then go out and place the Transcendence exactly on the mark. The reason for this is because web blades goes out during this reactive toxin, while this reactive toxin needs to be popped, right? So when you hit it with the Transcendence, you remove the ability for whoever's popping to be hit by web blades, which is very nice. Classically, it's done by a Brewmaster, but can easily be done by a Windwalker easiest to be done by a monk. And then if you don't have a monk in your raid at all, which is probably pretty unlikely, but you can have a tank do it for sure. And then they just need to kind of be aware and ready to get hit by that whale blade to pop the toxin. So in terms of boss positioning, you can either have it, a lot of how this was designed earlier was to deal with this fourth root set, right? So the main thing that we want here is that people who are eligible for toxin to kind of be in this oval, right, where all the markers are. And then again, people that are more likely to get Scar favoring that side of orange, people who are more likely to get purple favoring that side of orange, and then people who can only get purple favoring that, people who only get Star favoring that, right? Very important. And then, so we can have the boss here, and then the idea is that the toxins go down and then we gate, right? And then we all wrap back to Star before it gets popped while the web blades are going down. Or you drag the boss early and you just eliminate the use of the gate, right? Right now, you just put the boss over here and then you wait for web blades to go down and you walk into the Star as normal. Personally, I think eliminating the gate here is nice, and especially since obviously the roots don't exist anymore, there's no real reason for it. So I think moving forward, the best thing to do is what I said, where right now on your screen, you just drag the boss to basically the gate, and then melee who are in Star stack here, go into Star like this, melee who are in orange stack here, go into orange like this, and then people who are in purple are pretty much there already. So what you're seeing here is the old way to do it, but recommend dragging the boss to the gate, playing it backwards, right? You can see people who are got the toxin were already kind of near the markers. So, and the reason for that is we don't want anyone to get ticked by the green circle pulse, right? So to kind of explain that, people who have got toxin before are immune from being targeted again, right? So this is relevant on the set with anyone who has gotten it before doesn't need to be baiting, right, on the markers, so they can avoid getting ticked by it, right? So you can see these toxins are going to go down. We're going to take the gate, right? These web blades are going to go down, and you want to move into Star before any of the web blades go off. And then it's going to get popped with the Transcendence, and then the rest are just going to be popped as normal. And then all you're doing here is dodging waves. And then you also want to have the people with the green circles here, obviously because more than a few people have the debuff at this point, so you want to make sure that the people with the green circles are going to distinct spots. Now, if this player is not a DPS, I think that they should go farther this way, and then the second popper should go like this way, and third popper should go this way. Since this player is a melee DPS, allowing them to stay here is okay. The second player should definitely still go this way, and then the third player should definitely still go this way. But definitely just want to make it easy for people to dodge the waves, and also the circles if they have that vulnerability from popping the toxin. Right, and then intermission, like I said before, rest rest causes those puddles to appear under you, unless you are in AMS, I believe. So something to be aware of, right? So you can see their puddle spawn. Damage from reactive froth, which is the debuff you get from popping the circles, was reduced, I think, a bit. So this is not as scary as before, but the froth pop and then the first rest, very good time to use rally, devo. For the second rest in the intermission, you can just send every personal. If you have a ret or a prot paladin, you can look to sack someone squishy like a priest. Holy paladin can sack someone. They're going to bubble the second rest. Generally, shouldn't be that scary anymore, but just making everyone as safe as possible is nice. Giving the priests a rescue is nice. And then you just dodge 3 sets of waves before you get the second rest here. Death Knights hitting that AMS Death's Advance, and then they actually don't drop a puddle, and that's why our positioning is here. Very easy to troll. If you put a puddle here, it's like completely cooked. If you put a puddle in melee, it's like completely cooked. The webs actually do a lot of damage. Not something you want to do as a warrior. On the second rest, you can see the meta is so pop and rage regeneration. Go into the stuff here. The enraged regen keeps you safe, and then you hit a blade storm. And then you come back in, and that's how that is dealt with. When it comes to shield damage, you should generally be getting to the point where just natural damage is enough. When it comes to people who are doing the most damage to the shield, Shadow Priest and Frost Decay do a ton. Ret Paladin does a decent bit as well, and then Arcane Mage. And so that's kind of the general breakdown of like the highest damage dealers to the shield, with Frost Decay and Shadow Priest really able to carry it. So you kind of keep that in mind. Probably not super relevant as we get that damage. damage buff ramping up and the gear really ramping up towards 639. But something you want to be aware of, obviously the first time you're here, you want to lust here until you're comfortable with breaking the shield. And then once you get more comfortable into P2, you're going to want to be holding damage in the intermission until the third rest cast. You're going to want to push at some point during the third rest cast, and the reason for this is so that you have those cooldowns up for the first platform, because you have not many people doing a bunch of damage there. Depending on your comp, obviously, the previous meta was to give your Destro Warlock an Autumn and have them pop on CD in phase 1, and what that would allow is for their Infernal to come up for the first platform. They would do a bunch of damage there. Fury Warrior naturally does a lot of damage on the first platform, although I think maybe Arms might be more of a consideration on this fight with the changes coming. Kind of just have to see how that shakes out and what they're more comfortable playing. Shadow Priest does a lot on the first platform. Ret does a lot. So Sub Rogue does a ton on the first platform. So just keep in mind, that's kind of where you can struggle for damage if you push too fast. Just on that first platform, it can be a bit weird. And then if you push really fast on the second platform, I don't think your 2 minutes will come up in time, depending on when they were pressed. So, but yeah, very easy to lose people here to these last waves. Should be calming. Definitely watch for the waves. When you're thinking about which side is which here, you can see my reminders go left. If you started correctly, one pillar to the right of the main bridge when you walk into the room, you would then, just to briefly mention, the reason you do this is for a shadow step and like cat leap that puts to the back of her boss like this. The back of the boss like that, so she can be like shadow step and stuff like that to avoid the rest. If you directly do that, you're going to be this is left, this is right, and this is the ranged side on the right, and then this is the melee side on the left. Okay, now you can put markers there like Skull and X, like that's what we did like the first couple times we got here for people to cement it, but eventually you're gonna want those markers for other things. So you're dodging the waves here, and then you're going to go to your sides. There's some milk here. You can see we get a whole extra % of damage here. Important to con that, hold some damage for it. And then, so the people who are marking have marked that Kick-Wick Aura is working. The ranged are baiting these orbs. And the important thing to know here is that we don't want anyone to bait kind of in line, draw a straight line to save my life, in line with the portal, because what that means is an orb can go directly into the portal. So the healers here go through the portal, they appear, and then like an orb goes into their face. So we want to have ranged baiting on the sides here, and that'll make this the easiest. Definitely not in melee. That makes it quite hard for melee to dodge the orbs when they spawn inside them. And you just hit those kicks. You can see the portal weak aura in the middle of the screen, which I did not move, is like kind of their timer to take it. You can see it turn to red. They go in. They dispel themselves immediately, and you're just kind of pushing them, boss. You're killing the ad. Then the ad will knock you up to the second platform. What we want to be doing there is baiting this beam off the portal, or specifically to the left, right? So the portal weak aura says like take portal, and then it says left or right, right? It always says left first, then right. So the reason why we want to bait the beam like on this side of the portal is because the player will appear and they will go left first, right? Facing the middle of the room. So that is an explanation for that. So both ads here actually have shared HP. So we just want to blast them both. And when I say shared, I mean shared with the other two ads on the other platform. And see, something else to be aware of is getting pulled into this beam here. Generally, this bait off to the side is really nice. It's either like this or like completely straight back is going to be the best. Something else you need to be aware of is swirlies exist in this phase, and we want to keep those swirlies outside of this area you see here, because people usually don't get themselves pulled to like the very edge. They usually get pulled to like right here, right? So if you're baiting swirlies right here, biggest culprits of this is like dragons or a DH or anyone with wings, canceling it with like glide. They usually chill here and then bait orbs, and then people get pulled into them and die. Something to be aware of. And then the other thing is you want to have assignments for whoever is going to click these pylons. And then also keeping the puddles from rest off this pylon specifically could be really annoying if you put one here, because you have to wade through the goop to get to it. So the second portal of each, or the last portal of each platform should click this far one, in my opinion, because they kind of come through. It's kind of natural. And then usually it's during a rest, so they shouldn't walk all the way in anyway if they're a melee. And that's just a natural solution. What you can do is kind of make little images to assign that, just to make sure that they get clicked. All right, so you can see we assigned our pylons like this, and it's pretty nice. Something else to be aware of is Acid Bolt, which you can see in my raid frames here. While you're on the main platform, after you broke her intermission shield, she's just going to spit on random people and apply this 30-second long dot that really kind of hurts. So for healers, in this phase, you definitely want to prioritize those people for healing. And then generally just, here's an example of the swirlies. Generally with this, the portal mechanic is you just want to show it as much respect as possible. And so what I'm going to do here is show you kind of both sides of the phase 2 platforms. So the important thing here as well is that you can control which side gets rest first on the second platform of P2. And the reason the way you do that is by having that platform be like clearly activated first. So what we did was we forced the first rest cast on the melee side. So the Brewmaster is going super fast and tagging that platform ad that's at the back by the portal and activating it as quickly as possible. The range side is doing a little pause, like the bridges are activated, they wait 1 second, 2 seconds, then take that gate and then continue on as normal. And what this does is it forces the rest onto the melee side. Normal platform length would mean that the melee side gets 2 rests. These days, I think you can beat the second, or second if you're really fast, third if you're, you can beat the third rest now, and then and if you're quite slow, then you're going to get the 4th rest on both sides. But what this does is just kind of gives the easier platform the harder rests, right? And that's kind of it. And then obviously having it be the same every time is pretty valuable. So if you can see right here, you can hit the double roll, getting some quick aggro on the spiders, and then tagging this guardian. And what this does is it, again, forces the first rest. Here you can see it coming out. And then what you want to do now is just dispel every debuff instantly. So the healer debuff is going to go out, you dispel both instantly on each side, and then the first portal comes, you dispel that instantly, and then the last portal comes, dispel that instantly. And really, there's no reason to do damage to these skitters if you are not a tank. Like, don't even look at them. It's not worth it. Once they're on the ad, they will explode. And it's just so much harder for the tank to worry about getting aggro on them while they're trying to run up and get aggro on the actual ad that needs to be tanked. So like just relax, right? And then this is the point where you want to do that safety portal. This last debuff gets dispelled by the knock. The damage doesn't happen, so nothing to worry about there. And that's kind of that. From the ranged side, the first platform obviously looks the same. And then we'll also watch the second platform here. So you can see that specific wait, they take the gate, let that other platform be activated first. See minimal damage being dealt to those ads, and then prioing these real ads, and then all the small ads kind of just die. So before with the Gloom Touch timing, they held some of them until after this rest. But right now, you can just dispel them all instantly, and that timing will work out perfectly, right? And you can see he came through a very good example, right? He's going to go through his gate here. A small thing to mention, the Northern Sky weak aura counts down until the portal would explode. The liquid gate weak aura counts down until you should go in, right? So when the liquid thing hits 0, that's when it wants you to go in. That's about 3 seconds before the portal would blow up. This is an absolute timer to when the portal blows up, so you want to go around 3. Earlier, always better. If you have any chance of getting pulled by rest, go in early. If you have any chance of dying, go in early. Early, always better. Missing a portal in this phase is like just horrific because you just cause a wipe instantly, right? So something to keep in mind. And you can see he goes through the portal here, clicks it. He's the second guy through the portal, so he's clicking this far pylon. And that's just a nice convention. Then doing minimal damage to these ads, he's not even hitting them. Very ethical. And then you just get these ads marked, and then you're dodging orbs. Important on this phase, on this platform as well, that ranged are baiting. These first portals here are fast. Players doing this need to like run directly there. You can see he's here. He's going in. Depending on the players, you probably want to assign players there who have some ability to make sure that those portals are consistent. And then you kill them, and then you're just not getting knocked to phase 3. Hopping back to my VOD here, right? And then you get knocked up. You can see this debuff gets removed. The damage doesn't occur. And you can see when it comes to marking, you have so much time in this phase. Like, this was the first time I tanked this fight and done these markers. So I had my raid plan up on my second monitor, and I just checked it, put down all the markers, and I still have time to kind of get ready to tank the boss here. Right, and the dynamic here is pretty much the same for every infest. Now that they've removed that shackle set, ranged are kind of here against this pillar. The boss is kind of up here against this pillar. The tank wants to place this infest kind of like maybe 5 yards away from this pillar. And then all the melee want to bait the infest puddles like this and go like this, right? And then the range are going to bait this way and walk forward. And this creates the best puddles for us here. Right, and you can see everyone just kind of walks forward. This ring just slightly off center, keeping everything in cleave range of the boss. And you can see the ring, a D&D slow into the ring, into the Ursul's, binding, spit, cap totem, and then the ads are pretty much dead. Now, important here, whenever you're spawning the ads as a tank, you think about this corner, right? Have a line. You want to have the boss kind of on that line for the first one. For the 4 sets, it needs to be past the line to force it, not here, but here, 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 and here, right? We'll show that more clearly on the 3rd set. But immediately following the ads dying, she spawns ads and then casts web blades. And what you want to do is drag the boss such that it is in cleave range of this ad. What you want to do is wait until, like, make sure it's in cleave range until that shield is broken. And you see by doing that movement, both skull and triangle here ads have their shield broken and are able to be kicked as quickly as possible. And then as a tank, you're just moving the boss around to the last ad here. And then portals will be coming out, and then essences will be spawning. Important as the melee walk around, that these ads die very fast, and the essences will be spawning kind of like in your path. And that's just something you have to be aware of. When it comes to the portals, it's a really difficult mechanic in the sense that you can't hard assign it with a weak aura and have it be consistent, because people are so inconsistently spread in this phase. Like sometimes melee are on the boss here, right, where they're this portal on X melee, it's like very clearly like melee portal, right? And then this far one is more clearly ranged. But we have ranged by X, so if let's say the hunter here was targeted, right, then it would make much more sense for it to go here, and maybe the melee is targeted here. It would make much more sense for the melee to go to the ranged, like far portal, right? So what you want to do is recall back to phase 1, the reactive toxin, just have those 2 players communicate. The other solution is to have a priest stand either at the center portal or the far portal and just grip one of the players and kind of solve the mechanic that way. Grip is really nice because you can grip players on the other sets like before any of the web players would activate, and kind of like pre-solve the mechanic in that way. Bar anything, by far the best way to deal with the mechanic is to just have the 2 players communicate and figure it out that way. This debuff does actually quite a lot of damage, so players who are targeted with the portal mechanic should be spot healed and consider using maybe a light personal. The pulsing damage from the circle also actually does a lot of damage, and that's something you want to avoid as well. And these orbs, killer. Very easy to die to these orbs. I would recommend making some kind of reminder to look for them, or having your raid leader call that out. And you can see the take portal text here changes based on whether you're carrying an essence or not. And you can see all the people who jumped over the portal. Don't need to worry about spreading. When it comes to assignments, would recommend creating assignments for those, something like this. You can have rescues for really slow people like Death Knights. You can really tanky people you can have potentially stack, right? Like maybe the 2 tanks could stack, and then like really slow people obviously catering to them. But just generally having like general positions where you want people to spread to is really, really helpful. Recommend making those assignments in some way. And then kind of like secondarily, having a raid plan where you show where you want the people, like which essences are whose, is really helpful as well. For people knowing, I believe the weak aura tells you, I'm actually not sure if the weak aura tells you what marker to pick up, but you can put that in like your liquid reminders or your MRT reminders. Very much recommend doing that, and that should be completely fine. But having this visual is nice, especially on the like quote unquote hard set. Right, we have like the 3 old ones and then the 4 new ones. So having those 2 sets like visually distinct, something I recommend. And so immediately following this first portal is when we do our lust, right? So this is one of your lust options. I think there are only 2. So one, you can lust on pull. Generally, I just think this is a worse progress lust, because the thing that the 640 this lust does for you is the second infest. The thing that this lust does for you is that the second infest, which usually you don't have as much damage for, the lust will just carry completely, and you could put all that damage that you would kind of cleave onto or focus onto the ads into just the boss, and you gain a lot of boss damage from that. And then also the acolytes that spawn afterwards, the ads in the center of the room, they really, really get destroyed. The first shackles as well just absolutely disappear with this lust. And so like this previous progress point of like, okay, second infest to first shackles, second ads, that whole progress point is just kind of removed with this lust. And if you hold all your spy masters for the entire fight until this point and then send them here, like the boss absolutely gets obliterated. Like its HP like totally disappears. So something to be aware of. You can see these essences. This is a really bad placement for this essence, right? Because the ring kind of spawns like back here, right? And the player needs to go really far to pick it up. These are good. This third essence should just be up here, and they should all be like stacked together behind the boss here. So we have our second infest. You can see kind of like just offside this pillar, and then that ring goes down. The D&D is down. Spit, cap, stun, and then you can see for this queen summons, we did this small movement here just to make it super like so. This maybe 5 yards this way, just to make sure it's really past this center line, right? Drawing this line here, like the center of its hitbox is like just past it, right? And so we'll get a really nice spawn for these ads. These web blades are going down, and then shackled targets will be chosen. All right, make sure no one picks up an essence by accident. And so we're really stacking up these 3 shackles here. Important that they're as stacked as possible. Ideally as close to this ad as possible here. Even in this VOD, if they were like right on the edge here, that would be better. They're like, this separation is unideal for cleaving, but it's pretty immaterial. Once you move the boss over there, all these things will explode. And the thing here is that this AMZ also should be on this side of the boss. We want to, something I've seen guilds doing is just really not respecting the fall off damage from these shackles. You really want to stack on the far side of the boss, put that AMZ down here, then once the shackles go down, you just book it over here. The raid takes so much less damage from fall, like even this 10 yards of fall off difference from being on that other side. And you see you move the boss as fast as possible. I'm not a monk, so boss is a little slow, but the ads just completely disappear. I mean, this is arcane mage, like that's touch popping. So moving, especially if you have arcane mages, moving the boss here for this touch to explode on the shackles, really important. You can see just how, like, I think you got one shot or something. Tempest, also really big damage dealers to these shackles, and it's important that they die quickly because you really don't want people to be slowed for these web blades. And then looking for kicks of every melee, and just everyone in the raid should just be trying to get kicks. And you can see portal soon. Now all the essences are down, and then you should have a timer on your screen to pick up your essence, right? So you pick up essence 7. That ring is spawning. Wait till your timer's up and then go through. And then drop your essence. I dropped my essence in a pretty horrible spot here, right? And so, kind of, if you're doing this job, the better way to do it was to pick up the essence earlier, right? Drop my essence back here, and then move to the boss, right? So, even in a kill, we can see something better to be done. I'm actually gonna die here, I think, which is a bit embarrassing, but it's fine. So then we do the same thing we've done for every other infest, right? Ranged here, they're gonna walk forward. Melee here, they're gonna walk this way. And then you can see just how low the boss is here, and right, the ring, spit, cap. And that cap is like 5 seconds, just look how long it is, right? And that Ursol's will, that Ursol's and the VH stun will keep them just far. And then so you get this third Acolyte cast, right? And so this Acolyte was removed. And let's talk a bit about this set. So in this kill, it's extremely fast. We skip the third Shackles entirely, right? But what should occur is the Shackles should go to purple, and the Rage should go to skull. So the boss, instead of going here, should go here. The Rage should be in a link with our comp. On the far side of the boss here by skull, Shackles should be stacked on purple. And then, just like the other set, you drag the boss this way, delete the Shackles, play the Web Blades, pull the Shackle over to this ad to break its shield, then all the three shields are broken, and then you just have one ad casting. Make sure that one is Curse of Tongues, and then you have a bunch of time to just blast the boss and kill it. The only other thing that happens is a portal set, and you just want to make sure that those portals aren't like frying the raid, right? So like spread out, and then don't cleave each other with the... It's all about killing these fucking spiders.
Hard focus them.
Right, and so with players dead, the most important thing... If you have players dead here, the most important thing is that these hatchlings die. Obviously, if any goes into the boss, that's really bad. Get in the link. Then, right, this is a better example. Everyone on the far side of the boss here, right? And then these three Shackles grouped up. And then you drag them around, blow them up, right? You can see even in this VOD, this ad shield is already broken. Obviously, this ad wouldn't exist with the nerfs. So, kicking these really decreases the amount of damage blades after those Shackles. The most likely place people can die is like the Shackles hit and then one of the ad casts go off, or an extra ad cast goes off and kills people. So, really emptying the bag for this last Shackles. And then you just drag the boss. Just hit the fucking boss. Hit the boss. Hit the Shackles.
Portals soon,
break
don't
cleave. Use any person you have left. Get the Curse of
That's
Tongues on the far Acolyte that you can't kick, or any Acolyte that you can't kick.
Dodge orbs.
And then that should be about when the boss dies. Obviously, we have 6 seconds left until the ring cast. It's 6 seconds here plus whatever amount of time the ring cast is, for I think it's like 4 seconds. So maybe like 10 seconds from this point, she'll cast the ring and this ad will like blow up and do like 40 million damage to the raid or something. Tanks can possibly live it, but that's kind of that. And I think with that, that's pretty much everything. When it comes to like small things that you can do to help, utility assignments like rescues, life grip for the portal mechanic, time spirals. Make sure you have time spirals in phase 2, their mission. Making sure everyone is personaling the gloom rests of the second platform in P2. Something else to be aware of is you can only get targeted by shackle or portals once in phase 3, right? So if you get targeted by like the first set of shackles, you cannot get it again, right? So you can use your defensives accordingly. Same thing with the portals, in terms of like pre-positioning. Like if you get the first portals, you can just position and ignore like the positional requirements for the portals later on. In phase 1, I think I mentioned it, but it's similar with the reactive toxins. Can only get one of those in the entire phase 1. And I think in terms of this boss, that is pretty much everything. Obviously, the roots are much more easy to deal with now, and this graphic is pretty irrelevant. Yeah. So when it comes to the nerfs in general, just making sure that you have all this structure in place and Like, you try and diagnose those problems in real time, show people what they should be doing, where, like, what needs to change. The boss is very progressible at the moment, right? So just lock down, take it one step at a time, one phase at a time, find that consistency in phase 1, the intermission, phase 2, get to phase 3. The more pulls you get in phase 3, the more you solidify a kill. So with that being said, that is pretty much everything I have for Queen Ansurek. Best of luck heading into it. I think that you guys can really can probably get in there and kill it pretty quickly now with these nerfs. With that being said, been a great guide series, heroic, and wrapping up mythic now with Nerub-ar Palace. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this long guide. Best of luck, and we'll catch you next raid. See ya.